Hello, hello. Welcome to day 7 of Color Month 2024. Welcome to everyone who's watching live. I'm going to go over a little bit of housekeeping before we jump right into today's card. There are a couple of links down the video description for 2 different card events or online classes that I'm going to be teaching at. The first one is coming up this April and it's Hero Arts Spring Stamp Along. I think it's only $45 and it's a 2-day event. It's a lot of fun. It's one of those events where they, if you want, you can purchase the products that the teachers will be using, or they really encourage you to use what you have. So it's one of those ones where you can just show up and use whatever products you have. There's details down below. The second one is the Pink Fresh card event in August. It's also a 2-day event. And that one is one where they will mail you all of the products that they are using, and they are brand new products for the event. And it's a little more expensive because you're getting everything that the teachers are using, and they extended registration just by 1 day. So today, I believe, is the last day that you can register. So I really wanted to let you all know, since I was going live, that you can still do that. Okay, so let's get into today's color combos. So if you're watching live, this is going to be fun because we're going to pick out the color combos again. Are you ready for this? Okay, we're going to pick between these 2 color combos. I'm going to be using the same card idea that I've got planned, no matter what, what combo I'm using. I just have water all over this. I don't know what happened. I'm like, dry that off. I'm going to be watercoloring, obviously, so I've got water on my desk. But anyway, here are the 2 combos. You notice they've got numbers up in the top corner. And this is the stamp set I'm going to be using. This is SSS Stamps Checking In. Stamp set has some fun flowers. The stamp set I got, the printed label makes everything look really thick and weird. It's actually much more dainty lines when you stamp them. So you'll see that difference when I get into the actual card itself. But I thought this was such a good stamp set. This is one that I did that has a lot of like kind of hard greetings, like difficult greetings, things that you might have difficult to say, things you might have difficulty saying. I can't talk tonight. It's hard to form a sentence. So anyway, I thought it'd be really nice to just kind of have a card that's kind of difficult, have it on hand. I call it my insurance policy so that maybe I won't ever have to use it. But, we'll see. We're going with combo $3.91. I actually closed it and it was at exactly 60% of those watching live want this combo. So we're going to go with that one. And like I said, we're going to do watercoloring tonight. A little bit different. Okay. Oh, I just had an idea. What if, let's see, there are 6 colors in the color palette. What if I took the image or the stamping of all the flowers and I did like monochromatic paintings on 6 squares. I like this idea. And then I'll have the greeting on the die cut. I love this idea. I love this for us. So I'm going to use my favorite, which is Fabriano Artistico Extra White. All right, so I'm going to stamp this. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp it a little bit away from the edge. I think I do want to heat emboss. I'm going to heat emboss in white. So I'm going to prep the area with an anesthetic powder tool, and then I'm using Versamark ink to stamp my image. Get that pressed down all over. Well, I guess I'll find out. Because I want to be able to see when I'm stamping. Okay, it was this side right here. Good to know. And it's such a big image that's stamped, so I've really got to move my paper around. Okay, so you can kind of see where the image is. Okay, so now I can see where it's hard for you guys probably on camera, but I can see where it's at now. So now I can stamp you know, like a different spot. Oh yeah, we're totally good. Some more embossing. All right, it's a little bit hard to see, especially, it's not even gonna focus on it. There's like, the camera's not picking it up. So you're just gonna have to wait until I start painting to see it. Perfect. And then I can just pick different sections and I can just like kind of like trace around it, and then I'll use it for die cutting. And then we'll get this last one down here in this corner. There's basically just enough of the 2 stamped images to get six square sections. Well, one of the colors I think I almost have right off the bat, like right there. I can almost use that color like just straight out of the palette. And maybe we'll just go straight in order. All right, so that green is down here. I think I can, it looks like there might be just a little bit more blue in it. So I'm actually just going to pick up a little bit of that blue over there and kind of mix it in. Yeah, there we go. Gonna fade that out. Yeah, in fact, that's almost both greens, right? That's almost both greens. That's crazy. And I have a size 6 brush right now. I might have to switch to a smaller brush. Okay, I'm just getting a little bit of water down on this area. My paintbrush still has a little bit of that green in it, so it's kind of transferring over. Okay, all right, and then I'm just going to start, I think I'm just going to start dropping this in. In fact, maybe I'll have it just sort of start to fade up. Until it's the most pale up at the top. Yeah, I think that looks really pretty. I'm going to drop just a little more color in down here at the bottom. In fact, I'm going to drop more color in the flowers and the leaves. Just so it differentiates between the flower and the background. And because I did heat embossing, it's going to kind of hold that paint in the section so it doesn't escape. I think it works really well for stuff like this. Okay, I'm going to let that just dry as is, and we're going to move on to the next color. So we're trying to do a more pale green, so even more pale. So I'm just going to water this down the same color quite a bit. It kind of seems like it's the same color. Maybe we'll have to do one that's like lots more dark, or I don't know. We'll see. These colors are going to be interesting too down here because they're also similar. Okay, so I'm just going to come in and get this coming down really pale, just so there's like hardly any color. Just coming all the way down. Because I don't want to lose the lighter sections. So maybe I'll just bring in just a second little layer of color. think it kind of works. One's dark, one's light. I think it kind of works. Okay, let's go for yellow now. All of my yellows, they aren't quite this toned. It's all of the yellows I have are super, super bright. So I'm going to set this aside for a moment, and we're going to come back to our color mixing. And I've got two yellows up here. One is much too lemon yellow and the other is more golden. Like here are the two yellows. So I think if I use this color and just tone it down with a tiny bit of purple, which is its complementary color, I think I might get a nice gold shade. All right, so I'm gonna bring that right down here. And I'm just gonna pick up just a tiny bit of that purple to see how that just toned that down. So I think that's a much closer shade to what's happening over here. All right, let's get this kind of faded out. Yeah, I think that, I mean, it still looks a little bit bright on camera, but in person, that matches a little bit more. In fact, I might even add a little more purple. I need a bigger, in fact, I'll just bring this purple that's down here. There we go. All right, I'm going to bring in a little more of that purple. That just tones it down just a tiny bit. Oh yeah, that's even better. And let's do it from this end. And then I can just get more water on my brush and start to just fade this up. It's a little hard to see up here, so I think I might bring in a little more of that background right here so you can kind of see. So basically we're playing with like a monochromatic look for each one of these squares. And we're also playing with heat emboss resist because the heat embossing is kind of containing each one of these colors. So now we're going to move on to this section down here. And it looks like we have kind of like a slightly muted orange, kind of like a slightly muted tomato red, and then a soft rose shade. Let's start with orange. Looking at this, the color that is closest to that orange, I would say is probably, well, look at that red. I've got one over here that kind of matches it. So we can just use full strength of that red. But for the orange, I think I'm going to have to do this orange and tone it so it's not quite as saturated and bright. And I will tone it with its complementary color, which is blue. So bringing this orange down right here. Mixing up a nice big puddle. I think I'm going to tone it with a little bit of this blue down here. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of that blue. That might be too much. Yeah, it's turning brown. I'm going to have to add more orange back in. Someone just gave me a thumbs down right now. Is it because you don't like the color mixing? All right, add a little more orange in there. Bring it back to orange, not so brown. And a lot of this will depend on like how much paint I use, how much I fade it back. I'm going to add a little more of a different orange just to see if it brightens it up a little bit. Okay, I like that. I'm going to add more of this. It's this like really like nuclear mac and cheese color. Okay, I think that's a little bit closer to the orange shade. Let's try that out. It's a little dark, a little saturated, but if we fade it out, yeah, there we go. I think it's got like the right kind of tone for the orange, maybe even just a little yellow added to it. would make it look a little more orangey. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I like that. I think that's gonna work. Okay, remember I don't want it very strong at first. I want it to be pretty pale. Let's get that color all the way across. And then I'm going to dilute this color even more. I'm just going to move it to a different section of my palette, add more water to it, because I don't want it quite so strong. It's going to be really strong anyway. And then I can just start bringing it in on these different sections. I'm like dabbing off my brush so it's a little more of a thirsty brush, and then I can come in and kind of pick up some of the areas that I feel are a little too dark. And just like picking up some of that color kind of helps tone it back. All right, I'm gonna get that red, and maybe I'll mix it into that orange right here. That is pretty much the red that we're going for. It's really close to the orange, but that's how it is on the card. Like, look how close those are. That's crazy, right? It almost feels like there needs to be a little more purple in this. So I might mix just a little bit of purple in it, just to see if I can get it a little bit closer to that red. You know what? I don't like it. I like the brighter red better. Maybe I need to mix it in with a red shade instead of purple. Let's try that. Just getting a puddle of that paint straight from the palette. And then let's add a little bit of this red. I think that'll work. Okay, all right, I'll just bring in a little bit of that red. Just kind of get that moving to the other side. And then I'm going to bring in that color just in some places to make it a little bit darker. All right, I feel like I need a little more red right through here. Okay, so for the pink, gosh, how do I want to do this? I'm kind of thinking it looks closest to this color right here. Right here. Like maybe I could tone that just a little bit because it looks like it feels like it has more gray, right? It just feels like there's more gray in this color. And maybe that's the artist in me talking, but like I just go by like what things feel like. And we're going to use, let's see, bright pink up 2 from that. So it's this one. And in order to gray out this red, you would use the complementary color. So I'm going to use a teeny tiny bit of green to kind of tone this out and dull out the brightness. So I'm going to grab just a little bit of this green because I still need it to be, well, actually, I think I'll do this green right here. I'm going to get a little bit of that green on my palette over here. Sorry, you guys can't see it. It's off camera. Kind of tone it down a little bit. I'm hoping, I don't know, this is going to be hard to get this pink. Okay, let's paint this and see if we're anywhere near what I need to be. Okay, so that's really full strength. When I pull it out, does it, oh, we're not far off. When I really dilute it, look how close we are. we're really close actually. We're really close. That pink is really nice. I think it just needs a little bit more gray. So I'm going to add more green. All right, I'm going to see if I can get this to fade out. Oh no, I lost the pinkness. Well, that's not quite the color. Well, yeah, we need a little more of the red. Let's see. What other reds could I mix in? I think I'll take this one. I'm losing all the pinkness now. I need more red. Okay, there we go. I just needed to bring in that pinkness back. That's not bad. It almost needs a little purpley. Maybe it needs like a little more of a purple. We'll just mix in a little bit of that purple. I'm running out of space. Let's see. That's pretty spot on when it's diluted. Look at that. That's pretty close. Okay, we're going to go with that. We just have to make sure we don't get it too strong. I'm going to bring in this red that turns into pink. See, it just turns into a nice pink. All right, and then I'm going to bring in just a little bit. And I'm going to have to pick up that color so it's not quite as strong, probably for each one of these. This would be a really fun project to do if you're just like kind of experimenting with mixing colors, or even to, you know, help you get to know your color palette of paints. I think it could be a really good project for that. All right, I'm going to do that thing that I did before where I'm kind of drying off my brush and then coming in and just picking up some of that color so that it doesn't stay like super dark, because we don't want it to go so dark that we're back to red. We want it to look more pink. So then when you look back at the card, you've got like the orange, kind of reddish orange, and then the pink. I think that works well. Oh, I love that color palette. It's so pretty. I just have to figure out exactly how I want these on the card. And I think the spacing could still work. I like that. I probably could have put my gold greetings directly on the card front. And now I'm debating if I want to do that. There's no need for them to be like that. Okay. I'm going to get these adhered, and then I'll do my greetings again. And then we'll do this one like this. Just kind of getting that lined up just right. I'm going to grab one of these grid transparency sheets from SSS Stamp. And not only will it give me a nice line to make sure I have my greetings on there right, but I used these stamps before and there might be some residual Versamark on them. And this will make it so that I don't get any Versamark smudges on my card. Okay, I'm lining this up. Just being super picky. Pick those up. Okay. The plastic grid is a transparency grid sheet from SSS Stamp. All right, anti-static powder tool. and then we stamp. That stamp was looking crooked. We'll see if it's actually straight or not. Success. I was worried there for a minute. And it's actually straight. Yay. Okay, it warped just a tiny bit, but not bad. I'm going to try to straighten it out as it cools. Yeah, not bad. It just warped just a tiny bit right there. That's not so bad. So here's the finished card for tonight's live stream. I think having 6 isolated little paintings with one color on each is a great way to use a somewhat larger color palette with 6 colors. I think that worked out well. And I love how this looks. It's so clean and simple. It turned out really, really well and pretty quick in comparison to some other projects. So I love how theirs turned out. Just a reminder that there are those 2 links down below to upcoming classes. We've got the Hero Arts Spring Stamp Along and happening in April, and registration is open right now. And then we also have the Pink Fresh card event that's in August. And if you're watching the edited replay, they might have already closed registration. But if you're watching live right now, it's still open, I think, through midnight tonight. So you can go over and click and sign up for that. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in another Color Month video very soon. Thanks for watching.